I thank you for tuning in today to Eagles Haven. This particular Shabbat service at the Upper Room in beautiful Banning, California, we will be teaching on a special topic. It's similar to our verses topic. It's actually prudence and understanding versus wisdom and the goddess Sophia. So I want you to tune in right now and just get your scriptures. And if you're listening by CD or watching by DVD in the future, or tuning in live or by the video archives, I want you to come to an extreme revelation understanding of the understanding and the revelation of using the wrong words, the wrong frequencies of sounds. Now, we're all young in this, we're all learning. And because we're learning, we are growing every week and learning new words. As we explore and go in depth to the understanding of the paganistic deities and the sound frequencies of them placed in our government, placed in literature and material, in order for us to say these words and make wicked confession of their mouth. We know in the scriptures it says in the Torah not to mention no foreign deities out of our mouth. But tonight I'm going to be saying some things and sharing and spelling some and saying some. And we just open up in prayer and ask the HaRuachEliyahu'sChannel to come upon us and anoint this message through the airwaves and into your houses or into your CDs or DVDs, that you would feel the presence of the HaRuachEliyahu. And the demonic strongholds will be broken from the high places, casting down every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim. I want you to come to this understanding, to literally cast down every high thing, every intellectual preconceived knowledge that has been inputted to you from generations past, for it has been passed down through our forefathers in ignorance. But now we are people of knowledge, as in Daniel, where education and knowledge is vastly increased. So today, as we begin this topic of the study of prudent intellectual understanding versus wisdom and the goddess of Sophia. Alright? And we're going to see how the scriptures change when we start looking at it with a different language. First of all, I want to let you know that in the Hebrew words, it's hakam or hakma, and there's over 9 Hebrew words that are very friendly and good and clean to replace what they have pancaked over or placed on top with the word wisdom. They have deliberately or lazily, whichever comes first, willingly, wittily, or knowledgeably put this word wisdom or wise or wiser or wisely on top of good, clean Hebrew words. Now, it says in the last days that we would have a pure tongue and a pure language. He's going to raise us up knowing the Savior of all the house of Israel and the ones that are grafted in through the blood of Yahushua, to be grafted in and come into the house, so that all humanity, all goy, all goyim, they're coming in and they're no more strangers and sojourners. They're sojourners coming into the house and be grafted into the olive stump. So as we look at this, we're going to start off, first of all, there's so much information, but I wanted to keep the time very moderately balanced, so I don't want to bore you or get you too extended, because there's so much to study. I will be quoting scriptures you can do your own homework on. But if you've got a good Strong's Hebrew Greek Concordance dictionary or an e-sword that's equipped with a lot of things, then you can go ahead and proceed and follow me with this. We're going to start off with the word in 1 Corinthians. We're going to go to Corinthians Aleph, or 1 Corinthians chapter 1. And we're going to play around with certain specific scriptures that have references to the Tanakh, to the original covenant, because Whenever you see a scripture that says it is written, or the Nabi said, or it is written, or it's said by, and it got a reference to the original covenant, the Tanakh, or the Torah, that those words were Hebrew. Even when they were written down, they were Hebrew, even in the renewed covenant. And the quotation should be Hebrew. But they have placed these paganistic words, or these watered down words, to dilute, pollute, and contaminate the very sentences and things that are being said. So people that are here by the sound of my voice are hearing this. As you begin to hear this information, and what I'm going to share with you, that the Ruach HaKadosh is going to touch you in your seats in this room, or touch you also in your vehicle or your house, or in the comfort of your home through the stream. And you're going to be touched, and the imaginations of strongholds are going to come down. Preconceived information is going to come down. And the revelation of a pure understanding is going to come in. And you're going to have to deal with it, to speak it truthfully, honestly, because He comes in the spirit of truth. So let's look at, starting from chapter 1, verse 19, and that's Corinthians chapter 1. And we're going to look at verse 19. It has references to the Tanakh. So we're going to go ahead and use both of it back and forth to understand this. The different words. Starting from verse 19, it is written. For it has been written, right away, when it says it has been written, there is a reference. The reference here is Yeshayahu, or Isaiah 29:14. I shall destroy, and it says wisdom in the King Amos, or in some translations, of the wise, and set aside the learning of the learned ones. The quotation doesn't end there, even though some translations, King Amos and others, have a darker letter or a different writing pattern to make you think, see the quotation of the Tanakh or Yeshayahu. But it continues on in verse 20, and it sprinkles into 21. It spreads into 21, and it goes into the quotation also of Isaiah 19:12. But we're going to look at this. First of all, when it says wisdom here, it is the Greek word for Sophia. Sophia is a pagan goddess. It is a pagan deity. I don't even want to say it out of my mouth, but I need to explain this to you and share with you. And we're going to bind and destroy these high things. Sophia is the goddess, a Greek goddess of Athema. It is also of the Roman goddess of Minerva, of the intellectual, they call wisdom, of Sophia in medicine. That is Minerva in the Latin. Okay? She is also the goddess of wisdom and war, and she is the seal in California, seal in the state of California. There's also another understanding of this, it is not only just the Roman seal. The history of this goddess Sophia Athema is the spirit, it says, that fell out of the head of Zeus. She fell out of the head of Zeus. 53 times in the New Covenant, this particular Greek word is used. There's numerous other Greek words. There's a few kind Greek words they should have used, but they chose to use these words where we can speak them out of our mouth and say its vibrations and sounds to the pagan deities. So remember, it's a California seal, and they added in 1849 in California the seal Arica for the seal of the bear, California seal of the bear, because of the celebration and the jubilees of finding gold and all the mining that was going on in California then. But originally, even before 1849, the goddess Athema, Sophia, wisdom, has been in the seal. So this is a star in California, or a star, a principality, one of the 50 plus principalities of the flag. So this is a principality, a star, a 5-pointed star. We know we look outside and the stars don't have 5 points, and they're not even called stars in the Hebrew, in the original transcript or scriptures. Okay? It's an add-on word. It's a paganistic word that they're adding to get us to speak out of our mouth. Let's keep reading. I shall destroy the Sophia of the Sophos. It says wise. And set aside the learning of the learned ones. Where is the Sophos? That is actually, Sophos is now the Greek word 4680. Sophia is the Greek word 4678. Okay? There is a relation with sophizo in 2 Kepha or Peter chapter 1 verse 16, when it reads in a reference only 3 times in the scriptures, but in one time it's reading cunning devised fables. That word devised is sophizo, which is also wisdom or wiser. So there's a relationship with these spirits, these familiar spirits. Alright? So we're going to go ahead and keep reading. It says here, where is the wise, that's sophizos, where is the scholar, where is the debater of this age? Has not Elohim made foolish the Sophia of this world? Now that's pretty appropriate if you want to leave it there and say it in the right context. But it's supposed to be the knowledge or the intellect of this world. And then it says here in verse 21, for since in the Sophia, again, 4678 in the Greek, now they're using the word Sophia as wisdom for Elohim. And this is wrong. When we look at the King Imus, it's actually reading the wisdom of G-O-D. Now the wisdom of G-O-D is more appropriate if we're pagans and we're talking Greek mentality. Because it's talking about Theos, not the German deity of the sun, G-O-D-D, or G-O-T-T, of the pagan deities of the Anglo-Saxons or the Germanic Teutonic. But we're talking about the Theos, because originally it was Theos, it wasn't G-O-D. Okay? So when it says the Sophias of the Theos, they're talking about what fell out of the head of Zeus. We know that they have made a trick, paganistic name. They went from the J-man to the Isus to Isus, which is all relating to Zeus. Some people disapprove of that understanding, but it all has the root to that paganistic deity of that Theos understanding. Now remember, in colleges and Bible schools, I call them the scriptural schools, but in the schools they teach that some believe in replacement theology, or you get a degree of theology, which means you get a degree of the Theos, the different deities. Not realizing what they're telling you, you're getting it, and you never analyze 2 + 2 is 4 to get a revelation that they're talking about you're getting a degree on the practice of the Theos, the pagan deities. Now it says here in verse 21, if it says in King Imus the wisdom of the G-O-Ds, but in the proper context it should be the prudence understanding of Elohim. The world through prudence and understanding and wisdom, or understanding, did not know Elohim. It pleased Elohim through foolishness of preaching to save those who believe. And since the Yehudim ask a sign, and the Greek seek wisdom, Sophia, the Greek word again, of 4678. Yet we proclaim Messiah impaled to the Yehudim, and the stumbling block to the Greeks' foolishness. But to those who are called, both Yehudim and Greek, Messiah, the dunamis power of Elohim, and the prudent understanding, or if we would use it in Hebrew in the proper understanding, there in English should be a good understanding, is prudence and understanding. But in the Hebrew it would be the word chokhmah, or hakam. Now chokhmah means his skillful wit and good sense. But there's also Hebrew words where it shows in kabum, tavaumna, which is the intellectual understanding, an extension of discretion and reason, and skillful even to create and do things. Okay? So, by putting this word wise or wisdom on top and pointing to Elohim, it is so weak because there's certain specific Hebrew words in Hebrew language that gives him the super intelligent of prudence and understanding with a moral foundation, with protocol laws that he has granted unto us to understand. But they diminish and they take it away and water it down by using the paganistic deities of Sophia or Sophos, and I'm going to show you what Sophos means in a little while. Now, looking at this scripture from 1 Corinthians 1:19-22 with a quotation to Isaiah or Yeshayahu 29:14, and then verse 20, it goes into the quotation of Isaiah 19:12, and then it goes on with other quotations all the way down. Now, if you got a good Thomas Chain reference, or Matthew Thomas Chain reference, or Matthew, you can see footnotes of references in the Tanakh. That these are men, these messengers, these Yahudi, these Israelites, they're speaking Hebrew and giving quotations of references of scriptures, were speaking words with references of the Tanakh. So now, if they're speaking references, and you look at your references, then it should be Hebrew words that they're quoting, not in Greek or in Latin, which twists and pancakes or covers on top, puts a different cover and frosting on top, and you don't realize what you're saying out of your mouth, and it really doesn't give you the depth of the understanding. So we're going to look at the reference of this in Isaiah. We're going to go to Yeshayahu for the fun of it, and we're going to look at the reference. So let's go to the reference of 1 Corinthians, or Aleph, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, 19-22, 23 and on. But we're going to look at verse 19, that reference, and that is Yeshayahu 29:14. That's Isaiah 29:14. And this is the reference in verse 14. Therefore, see, I am again doing a marvelous work among this people, a marvelous work and a wonder. And the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their clever men shall be hidden. Now, in the proper context of the Hebrew language, it should be, and the, you ready for this? Chokmah of their hakam men shall perish, and the understanding of the clever man shall be hidden. Now, it is, when it says wisdom here in the Hebrew, it's chokmah, which is 2451 in Hebrew, Strong's, or in eSword. I'm using simple things to you that people have access. I know we can go to the lexicon and go more deeper in the Greek and also, but we're just going to say a very easy level for them that are tuning in and learning. And it says, for the wise, or hakam, K-A-M, hakam, that it's a different understanding. He's saying here that and the good sense, the good sense and skillful wit of their witty ones or wise ones, it's saying that they would be brought to nothing. So this is a reference. So the proper word is not Sophia, Athema, wisdom. It is the proper word hakam or chokmah. Alright, in the Hebrew. In English, it's simply very good. It's discretion, prudence, knowledge, common sense with policy, understanding. There's a policy, there's a moral foundation. Now, I want you to understand something. You say, why are you getting into this? Eagles Haven Ministry gets into all this wild stuff, Eliyahu, about something versus something and correction of words. Because you see, when you're using the paganistic words and the pagan word of the goddess Sophia, wisdom, that word and that definition of that word is this. Okay? It is a goddess, number one, higher or lower, worldly or spiritual wisdom, without moral, can be used without moral foundation or with moral foundation. So that it's 53 times it's used to contaminate, pollute the clean word of moral, prudence, intelligence, and understanding. So in other words, here we got people that learn certain things. And with that technology, because their foundation don't have a moral or the Torah, the 10-word covenant foundation, or the handling of understanding how the right ruling for every commandment, which commandment is instruction, like a prescription instruction, and you get your medication, and then there's a specific instruction of that prescription. So in every 10 commandments, there's a right ruling. Like for the Shabbat, it says to keep the Shabbat, but when you go to Isaiah 58, it gives you a detail how to keep the Shabbat of the right ruling. Okay, which in the Christian world and the community, that if they say that the sun god day is their Sabbath, they're not even following the right ruling. Because when I grew up as a child, next to my Jewish community that I grew up, the Yehudi community I grew up in, next door, even the Christians kept the Sunday Sabbath, and they didn't have radios, they didn't have the store, they weren't buying and selling, but they backslid in 50, 60 years from that. So they're not even following the right ruling in their bad understanding of doing Sabbath on the sun god day. So there's a right ruling, a prescribed instruction. There's an understanding of the ketubah, marriage covenant, of every word of the 10 words. So the same thing when we start using the false words and we're speaking them and we're applying them. If a person doesn't have the foundation of Torah and the Tanakh and the HaRuachEliyahu'sChannel, and they don't have a relationship, and they get wisdom, that wisdom can be contaminated and polluting in their walk of life. They can take it around and use it for evil. Like they're using hologram technology with a helmet that you can use. You can feel, sense. And they use it for military weapons. They use it for other things, for high-tech video games. But then somebody took that and doctored it up with their non-moral Sophia wisdom of understanding, and they contaminate it and use it for porn. So one thing that could be made to use for weapons, or one thing could be made for use for video games, another thing could be used for even more immoral action. That same is directed in a wrong direction, because there's no moral foundation, there's no Torah, there's no right ruling. They get swayed and contaminated easy. That doesn't mean that the Yehudi, the people that are like Jewish or Yehudi or Israelites, are not vulnerable to such temptations. But we have more of a moral foundation and conviction of blushing conscience that keeps us right walking at all times. When in Christianity, there's more liberalism, and they say they're saved under the G-girl, which is grace is a very perverted spirit of lust and sexuality. All right, so, and you can look it up if you don't believe me. You can look at our archives of favor versus grace, or grace versus favor. Okay? So now, as we look at this reference, the reference goes to Yeshayahu 29:14. Verse 20 has a reference of 19:12. He said, where are they? Where are your wives? Or where are your haka? Okay? Men, let them show you, and let them know what Yahuwah of hosts has concealed against the Mizraim. So that was a reference also in verse 20 of 1 Corinthians chapter 1. So verse 9 gives you a reference to Isaiah 29:14. Verse 20 gives you a reference to Isaiah 19:12. Okay, which is the Hebrew word of the Hebrew Strong's 2450. So I'm just showing you how right there's a quotation, and they pancake this wrong word that's more into the goddess Sophia or Sophos. And Sophos is a word, it's a goddess of Ceres. That's C-E-R-E-S. If you're in the Greek, sorry if I mispronounce it. And it's a ritual, it is a spirit of wise men for wise counsel, but it was the counsel of the Sophos, or what they call the council of the Sabaeans. The Sabaeans are considered wise men, but they did it. The Romans went to them. It's concerning ritual and sexual behavior. Okay, and that's where Sophos come. That's where that wisdom of that wise, that word wise, comes from. Sophos. You can look up it in Strong's. You look up it also in Wikipedia, and also in Google's, and look up the root of those words. Okay, so they're two pagan words. But Sophia is a straight up goddess. Sophos, you have to search for it to see it's Ceres or Ceres, which is Sapiens. All right, so you got to really dig for it to really find it, but it's there. All right. Most of in the Christian community, they do not search. They say anything they want. They call themselves pastors, and then they quote the pulpits, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. But the word pastor is only once in the New Covenant, and you look it up in Greek, and it means a shepherd or leader. And pastor means something else, and it's mentioned in the Tanakh what it means. I'll let you research it. But it said, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. We don't boast to, in any way, use a part of a verse, a portion of a verse, out of context for our own greedy of gain, to give this impression that we're really knowledgeable, or we make this new revelation. The revelation is in the word of Elohim. The Torah, the Tanakh, and even the whole New Covenant's got revelation, but there's quotations of the first covenant. So the word, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, 4 witnesses, 5 witnesses, you get the quotations of all the scriptures, and you get a good reference of understanding. And the reason why we emphasize this, because there's a spirit through our education system they call wisdom or knowledge or intellectual, with the foundation of Sophia. The goddess of Sophia, they have her in Athena, erected up, like I said, as a seal of California. But there's idols and images of her in different education places and colleges and schools, or Minerva of the medicine wisdom. All right, to concoct certain things of chemistry for their spellbinding of people. So now, let's look. Now, if we look at the word in this 4679 Greek, it's sophizo, which is in 2nd Kepha 1:19. I'm just quoting to you. You can go ahead and look at it. We're not going to turn to it. Where that word is a root word, and it's for cunning, devised fables. So that word wisdom, or Sophia, is a different term for cunning, devised fables, where they cunningly, craftily devise certain fables to give people misled in their information, to take them out of Torah, take them out of the Tanakh, and take them into this fantasy world, and take them into the world of Christianity with all its rituals. Now, we must understand, to break those spells, we must cast down the high things. We must renounce those deities of speaking them into our lives. I don't say I pray for faith. I pray for amunah, belief in the Word, by studying to show myself approved, a workman rightly dividing the word of truth. I do not pray for the goddess anymore, the Father, to give me wisdom, which is related to Sophia and Athena. I pray for prudence, intellectual understanding of the word of Chokmah, or Hakmah. Okay, so now, when I pray, I say these words in Hebrew, and I cry out to the Father for revelation, and He gives me this information. But He keeps telling me, I want you to cast down and deliver the people that got spells of these deities on their minds. They're reading scriptures and speaking them out of their mouth. And they're even saying that and applying it to pointing to the Creator. But I know when they say the wisdom of the G-O-D, they're not pointing to the Elohim of Israel. You think you are, but you're not. When you say the wisdom, the Sophia of the G-O-D, Theos, you're pointing to the Greek Zeus. You're pointing to something else. Okay? So you're inherently speaking on itself a word curse. And you are getting wisdom of Sophia, or because you say G-O-D, you're not going to Elohim. And you're getting an impartation of the mystical understanding of Greek understanding of all the pagan stuff, even in their science or their knowledge, without a moral foundation. Because a person can have a great education, but if he don't have Torah and he don't have the foundation of the covenant, he don't have the HaRuachEliyahu'sChannel, and he don't have a relationship with the Father, and he's not keeping the right ruling of the feast and the Shabbat, that man is got pollution of education and knowledge and intellectual understanding. So he can waver and bounce and be tempted quickly and swiftly in perversion. So we're going to look at this. This is the reason why I'm sharing this. We need to break the spells of the high things and cry and pray out for a true, moral, prudent understanding of education of Elohim's Word. The Hakmah or Hakam. Alright? Senses, discretion of knowledge with a policy of prudence, of common sense and understanding. That is the word we get in Hebrew 79:22 of sekel. We must come to this understanding of revelation of Tashiyah. Tushiyah. Understanding of substance to work and ability, of enterprise, of favor and prosperity, found in Job 5:2. Now, the next verse I want to take you to, Ephesians chapter 1 verse 8, which He made to abound toward us in all. They use the word wisdom and prudence. Now, in my King Amos Thompson chain reference with commentary and references and everything else, it says the word prudence with the number 1 is moral understanding or understanding. It has a star in front of the word wisdom. Alright? Now, the Greek word in this King Amos version, the Greek word is actually phronesis or phronesis. They use a PH and they use for Greek and a TH for the Latin. So you got thronos, like thrones, but this is phronesis, like the throne of your mind. Okay? Phronesis. It is the mental activity with morals of prudence. But the thing is, this particular Greek word 5428 is also pancaked with the word wisdom on top with English. So now, in some translations it would say prudence, it would say understanding, but in some others it would just use the word wisdom. They pancake it on top. Okay? The same Greek word is found in Luke 1:7. So I want us to go to Luke 1:7, or Lucas chapter 1 verse 17. Pardon me. We already looked at Ephesians chapter 1 verse 8 for the Greek word 5428, pancaking wisdom on top of phronesis. Okay? Now, phronesis has a good inside face to it, and what I'm going to explain to you in a little while. Okay, it also has links to pagan deities, but it's a little better word than the Sophia and Athena. Okay? but it's still got stuff. But it means like the throne of up here. Your thought pattern, your education, your foundation. You could have morals, and you can have prudent, and have mental action activity. Okay? That is the definition of the word. Now we're going to look at verse 17 of chapter 1 of Lucas, and it says this. And he said, we'll start at verse 16. And ye shall turn many of the children of Yesharel to Yahuwah their Elohim. And he shall go before him in the spirit, or the Ruach, and the dunamis of Eliyahu, to turn the hearts of the fathers of the children, and the disobedient and the insight to the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for Yahuwah. Now I'm going to read it in the King Amos version. Verse 17. And he will also go before him in the spirit and the power of Elijah, or Eliyahu, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for, capital L-O-R-D, Yahuwah. Now, this is a quotation of Malachi. Malachi chapter 4, 5, and 6. Now, even in the Greek, when I looked it up in the Greek, when I found out that the word to turn the hearts, it is the Greek word cardia, or car in Latin, or cardia in Greek, which is the center of understanding, education, and thought. So they use the word heart. Okay? And we're going to look at this reference, and they also use the word, and the disobedient to the Sophia of the just. They use the word wisdom. To make ready a people prepared for Yahuwah. What started me off is I look at these references, then I go into the Tanakh, and I look at the scripture, like we're going to go to Malachi, and then you see it doesn't have that word wisdom or wise in it. It has a completely different understanding, okay? So we're going to look at the reference of it. I want you to really look at this verse, okay? Because it got all kinds of information in it of reference. The word for wisdom is not Sophia. It is the word phronesis. 54:28. I know I said a minute ago Sophia. But particularly for this word wisdom, it's phronesis. Okay? A complete understanding. It's mental action, activity, prudence, moral understanding, and education. Okay, now, let's go to Malachi, or Meleki, and we're going to look at this verse. It's a great verse. It's a great quotation. Chapter 4. Before Telehim has some insight of what's to come on the earth. Everybody, the futurist Catholics have taken scripture and said, well, that already happened already. And we know that Yohanan, John, he came in the spirit of the power of Eliyahu. In the spirit of the power of Eliyahu. He wasn't Eliyahu, but he came in the spirit of power. And we know when the Messiah returns that the spirit of the power of Eliyahu is going to return again. And the spirit of the power of Eliyahu, even though my name is Eliyahu and I do research on in-depth study, it is people that would rise up against the LORDs of the BAALs, of the Phoenician, Canaanite deities, the 5 deities of the Baals, or Baals, which are LORDs. So now, that voice will come against the pagan deities and bring them down and cast down the imaginations of them, cast down those idols and crush them into powder and destroy their sun pillars and destroy their images of jealousy and cast them down from their minds and people's hearts and minds as well as physically. Okay? Eventually, in due time and season. Now look at verse 5. Let's start at verse 4. It's wonderful. Good stuff. In verse 4 of Malachi, Remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb for all of Yisrael. The right prescribed instructions and right rulings. See, I am sending you Eliyahu, the Nabi, before the coming of the great and awesome day of Yahuwah. Verse 6. And he shall turn, it doesn't say wisdom. This is a quotation. This is a quotation. But here the word wisdom is not here in this reference. And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with utter destruction. You see, when I'm speaking to you right now by the Ruach Kadosh, I tell you this, that the hearts of the fathers are going to the children. The heart here in the Hebrew is not the physical pumping blood heart. And Malachi, it is the reference. It is lab, L-A-B-E, Hebrew word 3820. Look it up. This word is used 485 times as heart in the English translations. But it is the foundation, understanding, intellectual growth of education, right ruling with morals, with understanding. It is the intellect, comfortably, courageous, considered understanding with moral understanding. It is used in the Hebrew. They pancake the word wisdom on top of it, but for only 6 times in 38:20. But it's used as courageous. It's used as considered understanding. But it's 485 times as the H-E-A-R-T. Heart. You got that? So, in this reference, they used to put the word wisdom on top of a word that should have been heart. In the beginning of King Amos, he says, in the power of Eliyahu to turn the hearts, in the Greek it's karadia, which is correct. It is the intellectual understanding of upbringing of the fathers to the children, the next generation, and the disobedient to the phronesis of the just, to make ready a people prepared for Yahuwah. This is a revelation understanding. You got to understand. We used to read it different in English. But the Father is calling deep onto deep with a pure language and a pure tongue to come up to the children of the next generation. The fathers have inherited, the children inherited lives of their forefathers. The children are going to be transformed and changed and get their fathers to come in. And if they don't, the next generation will have the pure understanding. Because you're not going to be able to come into in the day of Yahuwah, to come into this, to the place of the Bima, or the place of the relationship of right ruling, or the place of the Ruach Kadosh, unless you understand what he's saying here. He's saying the understanding, the right ruling. In Malachi, he's talking about the Torah. He's talking about the Tanakh. He's talking about the prescribed instruction, right ruling of the 10-word covenant. That's the whole thing of the fulfillment of this prophecy of the day of Eliyahu coming and turning the hearts of the children to the fathers and the fathers to the children. That word heart is understanding. It's revelation. It's something that's deeper than the pumping blood of an organ. This is the revelation that He wants to give to His people today. He's crying out to the lost house, the goy, the goyim that are lost and scattered and roaming the earth. The Eliyahu is rising up with a Ruach Kadosh in these last days. Men and women with a Ruach of the anointing of the last days of Eliyahu is going to rise up with fire to purify and to give the people the understanding, the heart, the revelation. And even in the Greek, it's a good word. When you look it up, it's not the fleshly pumped organ. It's the revelation, it's the understanding of upbringing with a moral foundation. It is not Sophia wisdom. It's not sophists. It's not watered down paganistic words that point into frequencies of wicked spirits. When I share this with you, I share with an urgency and emergency. I pray up this room and bind things and destroy strongholds, and my set of my messengers are with shields and armor, for I can get this out to you and be protected, even if I have to say some of these words, because I don't bow to them no more and I don't pray for them no more. I pray for the right ruling. I pray for the Torah. I pray for the understanding, the love, deep inside understanding. I pray for the Hakma, the Hukmah. I pray for the right understanding of the intellectual discretion, knowledge with the policy of prudence and common sense understanding. I pray for the Tishiyah, the intellectual understanding to do enterprises of working abilities here on the ranch in my work and ministry too. I pray for the Sekel that's found in Job, Job 30, chapter 34, verse 35. Sekel is the Hebrew clean word for intellectual consideration, and to build an expert understanding of instruction, to prosper in skill, success, and to teach others the same understanding, and to guide others willingly and wittingly. These are clean Hebrew words. The whole verse is changed when you read it in Hebrew. And not all the Greek is bad, because some of the words are clean, like I just read. When they're talking about the heart here in Luke 1:17. And it's supposed to be card in Latin, or cardia. Okay? So there's certain clean words that they just ignored and pancaked this other paganistic stuff to get us to say those vibrations of sounds and to cry out and pray for it. You're reading the Word, you're asking for the Sophia of the Theos. You're going to get it all right. You're going to get the understanding of a seducing spirit, of the Gashmir, the pagan deity spell. You're not going to get the evangelico or the evangelist of the Latin or Greek. You're not going to get the good news of the Bazora in Hebrew. You're going to get some other spirit, because what you pray for is what you're going to get. And a man, it says in the Word that people are destroyed for lack of understanding. And I say that many shepherds are destroyed for a lack of hunger and zeal to search the Scriptures and to cry out for answers when they run into little dead ends, or the puzzles don't fit. They try to cut them out with scissors and force them to fit, instead of saying, lay them out and ask the Ruach to put everything together according to the Word, with not just 2 or 3 witnesses, but 5, 6, 10. Not to force a half of a one witness. So we're coming to this understanding today, as we look at this, that it is the day of Eliyahu the Nabi, the great and awesome day of Yahuwah, to turn the hearts, or the labi, or love, of the fathers to the children. This understanding to the children, and the children to the fathers, back and forth. I brought my family to the Yahuwah. I brought them to the understanding of Yahushua HaMashiach, because they were drifted off as sojourners, as Israelites, even in growing up in a Jewish community area of Los Angeles. So let's look on. I got a few more minutes here. I wanted you to look at too now another word, and this is 54:29 in the Greek. It's throimos or imos. It's not throisis. This is throimos. It's found 13 times as wise, and 1 time as wiser. And it's found in 1 Corinthians chapter 4:10, and we're going to go to it. Let's have some fun with the Scriptures. And this is 4:10. We are fools for the Messiah's sake, but you are wise in Messiah. This is not the word sophos or Sophia. This is throimos. And this is actually not a bad word. I try to find something, if somebody could find something that is a Greek pagan deity linked to the Theos. I couldn't find it. If you did, help me. If you don't, agree with me. But it is the word, it's a good practical, it's practical knowledge. It's a clean word, as far as I can find out. Correct me if I'm wrong. A year from now or a month from now I might find different. I'm open for correction. Okay, so it is practical knowledge, common sense with a moral foundation. Chapter 10:15 is the same word. And it says, I speak to, and you say wise men, he says sophos, or Sophia, or wisdom. He said, Throimos, men, judge for yourself what I say. And then he's going on the cup of Baruch. Okay? Now, excuse me. So now, that shows you a difference in the Greek. Another Greek word is 54:26, and it's thrones, like throne or thrones. Okay? And that's in Matthew 16:23. It's used 30 different times in the Greek. Has different uses. Doesn't have to say wise or wiser or wisely. Has understanding, has all kinds of. And we go to Eliyahu, or Matthew 16:23, and it says this, but he turned and said to Kiba, get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me. For you are not mindful of the things of Elohim, but the things of men. So in this word, mindful is thrones, like throne, but it's dealing with the intellect. You are not thinking. You are not using your practical knowledge of understanding. He says you are thinking different. Get behind me, Shaitan. You are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of Elohim, but the things of men. So he's talking about who he's speaking to. He's rebuking here. If you got a King Amos Thomas Chain reference, it's in red letter, and Messiah was speaking. Okay? All right, let's go to the Greek word 54:30. Throimos. And that's Luke 16:8. And I'm not going to go to it. You can look at it yourself. A little homework. It's used 2 times, and it's for wisely. Okay? It's the same word almost in 54:29, but it's used in 54:30 in Greek. And it is a little more different expression in the Greek language or in Latin. And it's for wisely, not wise. Okay? Now, throisis comes from a root, even though it has a kind, good sense to it, but it does come from the Greek word nous, nos. It is a deity of everything that fell out of the head of Zeus. From Athenoia, from Theos. They didn't use the word G-O-D here, because it didn't exist yet. G-O-D or G-O-D-D or G-O-T-T is Greek and Anglo-Saxon. German and Anglo-Saxon. That came way later in the Germanic translations of scriptures. Okay? Now, the relationship of this word thronesis is also pistis Sophia, the intelligence, the root word, but the clean word is prudence. Now, pistis Sophia is actually a dual word meaning a word of wisdom. It is also the word used for social science of Aristotelian. Alright, so it's the science of education, of logic. And it's also a word for word of wisdom. Now, we know that some people operate, they talk about the gifts of the HaRuachEliyahu'sChannel and the word of wisdom, word of knowledge. But if they use the word wisdom, they're using the word of Sophia. It's called pistis Sophia. So when somebody says they're going to give you a word of wisdom, be careful, back away, step aside, rebuke it, don't hear it, because they're talking about giving you pistis Sophia. They're actually talking about giving you fortune telling. So be wise and careful. Don't let people lay hands on you suddenly that are using paganistic words, even if they're sincere and they're sincerely coming out into the true name, that they're still operating under those charismatica spirits, because charismatica is one of the Trinity pagan deities of grace and charisma and charity. So we got to be careful when people still got those spirits. They have to cast down the imaginations of it, renounce those spirits. I personally, when I went on the floor, I started renouncing these particular things. And let me share with you. You don't have to believe me. You don't. But I challenge you. You go in your private closet and you renounce Zeus. You renounce the Jesus, the J-man. The Latin, Germanic, little sound, rough letter J in front of Isus, which has nothing to do with the Hebrew Messiah, Yahushua. And you ask Yahushua, the true Hebrew Messiah, to come into your heart and cleanse you with His blood that was shed on that pole, that stake on Golgotha's head. And you ask Him to come in your heart, you're going to have an experience. You're going to feel His presence, and you're going to choke and cough other stuff out. You stop using the word graces, grace, charity, and all those pagan charismatic demons, and you cast those pagan god of naked women out of your life and those words out of your mouth. You renounce them, and what's going to happen, and you say the right words, things are going to leave you, and the Father's going to impart Baruch into you. Okay? He's going to put something better into you. He's going to anoint you with the true Ruach Kadosh. Some people are baptized in another spirit. They're not immersed in the Ruach Kadosh of fire. Because most people they're so anointed and under the holy, hollow spirit, that's a pagan deity, hollow. And then they go outside and flirt, and they go outside, mess around with, listen to false pagan music, or they leave their sun god service and go right to a pagan movie and entertain their carne, their flesh. The fruit shall bear witness entirely of their actions, of their lives. And you know it. If you're listening, if you're a preacher, if you're a minister in bed, and you coming out of the pagan words, you know the battle of your mind and the body and the flesh and the spirit. You know what you're battling. Because you're not under right ruling. You're not under the Torah. You're not in the right prescribed instructions to give you a moral foundation. That blushing conscience of the Ruach Kadosh can keep you and hug you and love you. Because we keep the Torah through love. I love them. I keep the Torah. Okay? So now, let me share a few Hebrew scriptures. I got like 5 minutes. And in the Hebrew scriptures, in the Hebrew words that they replaced wisdom, I already told you hakam, hakma, wisdom, skill, good sense. 2 Chronicles, or Dibra ha-Yamin, Aleph, 1 Chronicles, has the Hebrew word in chapter 22, verse 12, 79:22, which is sekel, intelligence, success, discretion, knowledge, a policy of prudence, common sense, and understanding with morals. There's also 24:52 in the Hebrew, which is hakma, and it's 8 times, and in Daniel chapter 2, verse 20, verse 21, verse 23, and verse 30. Okay? Awesome Hebrew understanding instead of using the word wisdom. The paganistic word inherited from the Erasmus translation and the Geneva translations. And then the good word in Hebrew. There's also Hebrew 84:54, which is found in Job or Iob, chapter 6, verse 13, chapter 12, verse 16. And one time in 6:13 and 12:16 It is the pancake word wisdom is on top of it. But in Job chapter 5 verse 12, it's enterprise. Like understanding of substance, of work ability for prosperity, intellectual enterprise. Craftsman, man that can produce things and make money to provide for his family and the ministry. Job 34:35 is sakal. S-A-K-A-L. Excuse me, I'm saying it wrong. I'm welcome for correction. Sakal. It's intellectual consideration. Expert. Instruct. Prosper. Skill. Success. Teach. Understand. Guide. In a wittily moral understanding. The same word in Hebrew 70:19, right, that they put this word wisdom on top. In Proverbs 19:14, they use the same Hebrew word 79:19, and it's prudence. Okay? 38:20 in the Hebrew, which is leb or labed. It's 485 times, and it describes the fleshly pumping heart, but it's really leb. It's an intellect conforming to courageous consideration and understanding. There's also 998 in the Hebrew. 998 in Hebrew is found in Job 39:26, which is Biyanah, B-I-Y-N-A-H, and it means understanding, knowledge of meanings, like a Nabi would minister. Understanding, knowledge of meanings, sayings, 40 times used in the Hebrew translations. 5 times used is Hebrew 24:54, and it's hakmat. Hakmat, twice. It is the feminine word for wisdom for women, or feminine side. It's Psalms 49:3, pardon me. 49:3. Also Psalms 105:22 is Hebrew 24:59. It's hakam. It means mind, word, or action, exceedingly teach, deal wisely. 26 times used. I'm just going on and on. They pancake this pagan Sophia wisdom word on top of good Hebrew words, and the Yahudi are not innocent for it, because they got King George over there in Israel in the Ashkenazi and the English translations putting these pancake pagan words too. Okay? And nobody's questioning over there, and we need to correct that. And also 83:94 in Hebrew of Psalms 136:5. 136:5. It's Hebrew word 83:94. It's tabun, tabuna, tahuna. And it's 30 times used as a poetic, we're saying, intellectual, in argument, extension, in discretion, reason, and skillful, in conversations, in dispute, in a good way. 40 times used. And also in tahuna, 38 times used. Proverbs 1:3, good scripture. It is 79:19. It's sakal, to make or act in circumspect, intelligently consider, expert, instruct, prosper, skill, behave, and self-willingly. 70 times used. They pancake the word wisdom, but also in Proverbs 19:14 is an example. Some of these are examples. I'm not going to give you all the scripture. You got to do your whole homework. But in Proverbs 19:14 compared to Proverbs 1:3, okay, it is prudence. That's why we favor the word prudent and understanding versus wisdom, the goddess Sophia and Athema. So I come to the close of that revelation understanding that we need to break the spirit. We need to break the strongholds of the preconceived doctrines of devils and doctrines of false languages that have been inputted, impaired, or improperly put into us in an impure way, and then we're confessing these things. So I say to you today, in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, have a pure revelation understanding. Study to show yourself approved. Have the amunah, of researching and believing the Word. And let the love, and let the true love, in Greek is agape, it's not charity, that's a pagan deity, it's agape. And let the love of Yahuwah be upon you and draw you more to the Torah and the Tanakh and more to the right ruling of the Scriptures. I thank you for tuning in to Eagles Haven Ministry.